Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
all in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche And after 22 years, Raymond Mark!
The sickest NHL podcast. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network. He is Pierre McGuire. I am Jimmy Murphy. And Pierre, I think a lot of people in the hockey world woke up a bit surprised today to see that the Boston Bruins went into Sunrise, Florida, less than 48 hours after they eliminated the Toronto Maple Leafs in Game 7 in Boston in overtime on Saturday, and beat the Florida Panthers 5-1. Now, as we were just saying off the air to our production crew, we all in agreement that the game was a lot closer than the score, and that the Bruins still didn't play their best game. Still, an impressive game by the Bruins to go in there to just kind of ride that momentum, seize it, and get a huge road win to start the series.
Well, rhythm matters a lot in the playoffs, and they were in rhythm, and the Florida Panthers were not in rhythm. That's number one. Number two, outstanding goaltending again from Swayman and all these people that are doubting Jim Montgomery and the coaching staff. Until you've been in the room and you're with the players every day, you have no internal knowledge of what players are going to do or won't do. You have no idea. So all the speculation is it's meaningless. That's number two. Third thing, players that have never scored playoff goals, Justin Brazeau, Mason Lowry, makes a difference, especially with the way they did it. Lowry's shot is a beautiful shot. It's a beautiful, elite shot. Brazeau's play is spectacular, especially after the timeout by Jimmy Montgomery. The shots were 11-1 at that point in the third period when Jimmy called a timeout, settled guys down, and Brazeau goes down and scored. So there was a lot of really good stuff from the Boston perspective. But Jimmy, I know you touched on it when we were off the air, and I mean this. That's a lot of nervous energy that they blew up last night. It's great. They won the game. It changes the dynamic of the series. I think they're running on fumes in game two. I could be really wrong. I could be really wrong in this one, but it's just human nature, man. You can only get up to certain levels, and then you hit a wall for a little while.
Well, Pierre, I said to you going into game one, I said if there's a game that the Bruins can win, in my opinion, it's game one because I said if they're gonna split in Florida, game one's the game because they're gonna be riding that momentum while Florida's coming in haven't played for 10 days or something, and they're rusty and they just don't have that juice that the Bruins are getting, or rhythm, as you put it, that the Bruins had coming in. So the Bruins did that, credit to them, but I'm with you. I think right now, as we speak, the weight of what they have just been through, especially Brandon Carlo. Oh, by the way, he had a baby boy and then flew down the day of the game and scored a goal. Hello.
A cool name, by the way. Being transparent, my daughter was a significant rower in her career, and Crew. And I heard Crew Carlo. That's such a cool name. That's a really good name, cute name, good name, and congratulations to the Carlo family.
And you know what? I think, Pierre, too, I think any, parent out there right now, or especially fathers, like when you have a baby, it's almost like the momentum we're just talking about, getting from a win in a game and getting up for a playoff game, and it's maybe even 500 times more. You can do anything, even without the sleep. Like you're riding, you're feeling it, man. And you're so happy and you're so in love with life and your new baby. And so I'm just regretting, Pierre, that I didn't go to C-Bet last night and bet Brandon Carlo to score a goal, because I'm telling you, it was plus 2,000. If you put $100 on Brandon Carlo to score, you would have won a lot of money. So remember to go to C-Bet there. And as always, on your first bet, once you use the code SICK, SICK, you will get refunded 300 Canadian, some free money to play with there at C-Bet, and we're glad to have them as a sponsor. But Pierre, I mean, unbelievable job by Brandon Carlo to get down there and step up in the moment. But as you go back to, you said it, I think the biggest key is Jeremy Swayman right now, Pierre. And I'm going to tell you something, and by no means, I want to preface this, okay? So I don't want you to fall off your chair when I mention the name in the same breath as Jeremy Swayman. By no means am I comparing him to or saying that he will go on to have the career of one Patrick Waugh. But what I notice and what I keep thinking of when I see it, have you noticed when he gets up from a scrum, he's always smiling? and then he skates along the line over the corner, comes back, then does it over to the other corner, comes back. I just remember Waugh doing that all the time. And of course, that famous scene against the Kings in '93 with the little wink. It's just bringing back memories. That's all. It makes me realize this kid's having fun out there, and that's huge for a goalie in the playoffs, Pierre.
The wink was to Thomas Sandstrom of the LA Kings. And what I really admire is how you said that. But what I would also say is Jeremy's not just smiling and having fun. He's talking.
Oh,
he's
yeah.
talking to his teammates. He's talking to the referee.
Too.
Everybody. He's having every interview, Jimmy, I ever did at the national level in Canada, Olympics, Stanley Cups, all of them, over 2,000 games. I always said to the players the same thing: have fun tonight, have fun this afternoon. Because I'm telling you, if you're not having fun, you don't have a chance to win. The late Toe Blake had a theory in Montreal. If you could get your team to collectively laugh in the dressing room before a big game or any game, their chances of winning was a lot better than if they were just sitting there grabbing their sticks and all intense. So that was something that they would work on. The old Canadians back in the 50s.
That's great.
And I wasn't there. I wasn't born. I was born in '61. But I hear that from Scotty, and he would tell me that story. And when we were in Pittsburgh together, he'd be like, "We got to find a way to get our guys a little more loose." I said, Scotty, there's some things you don't need to know. Our guys are loose enough. Don't worry. We're just fine. We're loose. We're good. We'll be fine.
Yeah. Even when you see him when he's lined up, they're lined up up by the center ice for the national anthem. He's just sitting there looking around last night. He's taking it all in, really swallowing up the environment there and the atmosphere. And that must be so calming for the players in front of him, Pierre. When they look back and they see their goalie like that, that helps them be that way too, I bet. It's contagious.
I think that's a great point. I really do. And I'm gonna buy that from you. I think that's great. Here's another thing, though. You know how we're big proponents of college hockey?
Yes.
He played at Alfond Arena. He played in Hockey East. I've gone up there to scout. I've gone up there to watch my son play in Orono. It's a tough place, Jimmy. And, you grow up in that environment as a college player. Eventually, he becomes the MVP of the Hockey East, which is no conference in college hockey has more players in the NHL right now than Hockey East. No conference.
Yep.
Okay. So you play in that league and you play in Orono, it's not a huge step to get to where you need to be to play in the pro.
Yeah.
And so I think there's more to it than just he showed up and he was great.
Yeah.
He was developed and he was on his way to being great.
Yeah. It's been instilled in him, so to speak.
Yes.
From his path to the NHL. It's a great point there. All right, Pierre, first of all, I forgot to mention, and I apologize, we've got a great guest coming up. I'm not sure if anyone saw our tweet, but if you didn't, Eric Lacroix will be joining us here on the podcast to talk some Colorado Avalanche, talk about his career, and some other great NHL topics. We'll talk about the playoffs with him as well. But Eric for a long time, Pierre. Just talk to our listeners and viewers about him right now.
Well, I recruited Eric and his brother Martin out of Montreal, and I got three of them at the same time. I got Eric Lacroix, Martin Lacroix, and Daniel Laperriere.
Wow.
And all three of them were involved with the National Hockey League. Marty was drafted by the Islanders, Eric was drafted by Toronto, and Danny was drafted by St. Louis. They all played, Eric's had a phenomenal career in hockey. He was a great player at St. Lawrence. Went to Toronto, he won a Stanley Cup, or a couple of them, I think, as a player. And his late father, Pierre, is, obviously a legendary management person and agent. And it just got inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. So there's a lot there, but he still lives in Colorado. His son, Max, is a backup goalie right now at Boston University, which is pretty. I was talking to Eric today. I said, "How's Maxie doing?" He goes, "Good." He goes, "Could you imagine every day you got to face Macklin Celebrini in practice?"
That'll get you better.
Right. It makes you better, right? It just makes you better. So, he's a fantastic hockey person. He's got an amazing sense of the league, of the National Hockey League, and a really good feel for what's going on in Colorado. Obviously, he lives there, and he knows a lot of the management people there. Obviously, Joe Sakic's one of his old teammates, so pretty cool situation. We're going to get the lowdown on Colorado and where they are right now from Eric.
And you know what? Let's do that right now. It looks like we've got Eric Lacroix in our studio. Let's pull him in here on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network. Eric, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, guys. How you doing?
Great. Good to have you on the Eye Test. Welcome aboard. And what's been your take so far of the Colorado Avalanche in this young playoff season?
Well, it was weird. I mean, first, thanks for having me on. This is awesome. Anytime you need anything, Avs, you call me, and anything for Pierre. We've known each other forever. So great family friend, and glad to be here. But to answer your question is, if you look at their season, you know, it was they had a great season. You know what I mean? After the disappointment from last year, obviously the exit in the first round of Seattle and chasing for that, all the injuries they had after the cup run, and then still getting that first place, right? The division title, which was huge for them, but took a toll on them. And then they kind of the playoff. They had nothing left in the tank, and everyone knows, as you guys know, I mean, they had the short summer, they had nothing left. And I think this year was a little bit of a redemption year, and they had a great season, and I think their trade deadline was really, really good. I'm not being biased here. I told Chris that, you know,
Pierre's been raving about it. Trust me, you're the first one. Oh yeah, we're a big fan of what you did at the deadline.
And I saw Chris like a few days after, and I'm a big Chris McFarland fan, and the guy's a worker. And I told him, I said, boy, oh boy, I mean, I'm not going to lie. Like, as a fan, I was really excited because I was like, well, this is going to make a big difference. And I think you saw right away the difference. They were awesome, like the first 8 to 10 games right after the deadline. And you could tell right before that, you know, they needed something because it was just kind of going sideways a little bit. There was some off, and, you know, they needed a little something. And I think CMAC, you know, I think owed it to the team and the core that they have. And McKinnon, you know, we saw today, he's nominated again for the, you know, the Hart Trophy and everything. So I think they needed something, and he nailed it right on the head. And they went about 8-10 games. They were awesome. And then they hit a little bit of a dip sliding into the last maybe 7-8 games. And everyone, as we know, you know, I mean, they got thumped by Winnipeg. It was ugly. And, you know, they lost. They lost home ice. And I think the aura around town was really like, whoa, what is going on with these guys? And then, you know, you're supposed to be going and flying in the playoffs, and they're really not. They went in sideways. And again, I'm not here to nitpick goaltending or whatever, but goaltending was not
painting the big picture. Yeah, that's all.
It wasn't good. Goaltending wasn't good. And Pierre knows I have a goal. My son's a goalie. I'm not a goalie killer. So I don't, I try to stay away from blaming goalies. You know what I mean? But it just wasn't good. It wasn't good. And then Annunen was coming up, and you know, they had tried to get something done at the deadline, right? And then obviously it didn't work out. And I was a big guy yelling for, you know, they need a little bit of help for Georgiev, you know, a little bit of, you know, Marc-Andre Fleury type, you know, obviously wasn't going to work, but I'm saying like the type, just a little mentor, Quick, like Quick was last year in Vegas, or Quick could be this year for starting, right? You know, so I just didn't work out. And then I think Annunen played so good, but he had 10 career games played. So you're like, man, is this how they're going to get in there? And I think the first round, all the eyes were on Winnipeg because of that 7-0 game, because of, you know, everything else. And I think it took a little bit of the pressure away from them. It took a little bit of, you know, going on the road, not being at home, just kind of getting away. And they go in that first game, and again, I'm going to look like a goalie killer again, but they were awesome. They played great. Yeah, they made a couple bonehead mistakes, but I mean, they gave up 23 shots. I think they had like 7 or 8 high danger chances. Then they lost 7-6. I mean, it was just a very poor goaltending performance. Now, with that said, I do believe, and I don't care what people say, and Jared Bednar, like, you know, he'll never come clean, or Chris will never come clean. But I do believe in that game, if Justus Annunen is not sick, he was in the hotel room, not on the bench. I do believe he comes in that game, and maybe they end up winning that game. You know what I mean? Like 6-5 instead of losing 7-6. And I don't think you see Georgiev again. I think Georgiev played. I think they were on the last straw with him. I think he had just it had been tough. And I think they had no choice now but to play in game 2 because Annunen was still sick. And they even, you know, they had the third goalie, the taxi squad goalie, Holm. I think Harvard Holm was there, and then they were like, well, we can't play this guy. You know, they didn't even have their third guy, Prosvetov, because they were playing in in the playoffs in Loveland. So then they made the switch, knowing game 2 that Annunen was still sick. So they made the flip-flop, and then you're like, man, is this guy really going to get in the net? There's no way Georgiev stands back up. And to his credit, he was really good games 2, 3, 4, and 5. You know what I mean? He did. And I do believe, I see these guys every day, and their core is so strong. I mean, those guys are so good. McGuire, Rantanen, and McKinnon. But all you need, I think, at the goaltending position is the goalie to be good. He doesn't need to be great, but it can't be bad. And I think he was bad game 1, and I think you saw game 2, 3, and 4, which I think all of us and all of you guys probably not in town was expecting Hellebuck to be better. Game 2, be better game 3, and it never really happened, right? So I think the Avalanche proved to be too. Those guys are so good. They're winners. They have the right core here, and I know there's a lot to be said about Toronto the last few days and everything. You talk about core and stuff. Well, those guys know how to win here, and they want to win, and they've lost a big part of their core in Landeskog. Obviously, it's been 2 years now, but I think that together as a group, as a unit, they do have the right mix here, and you can see it in practice every day that these guys want to win. They want to taste it again.
Yeah.
Eric, I got to ask you, because you've been part of a Stanley Cup winning team as a player. You get it. You understand the dynamics of everything. Okay? So all I'm going to ask you is this. Tell the people at home how intense Nathan McKinnon truly is. Because I've seen it a lot of years.
Yeah.
You got to back me up on this.
Yeah, it's so it's funny. I think they have the right mix here, because I'll get back to Nate in a second, but I think with Landeskog being more like the adult, and I mean, like the guy. I mean, he was 18 years old. As you remember him at World Juniors, Pierre. Like, I mean, my God, you listen to him, you're like, you're not European, you're English. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this guy's like, what? You know what I mean? Like, he was so mature, and so he's an adult, and then you have Kel McCarr that is so humble and so good and so like. Deflects everything off, to everybody else. And then you have Mikko Rantanen, that's more like the big buffoon. And, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? He's, and Nate's is the dog, right? They call him the dog. I mean, he's just an angry dog. And you see it every day in practice. Pierre's right. He expects a lot. I think a little bit misunderstood maybe early in his career, and then had to learn how to deal with it. And I think probably made a few teammates cry along the way as well, right? Because it's so intense, especially young guys. And then you talk to agents, and they're like, "Oh my God, my client can't deal with this guy. Like, he's just, you know what I mean? He's too intense, like,
he's
right?
Like a drill sergeant.
Yeah, and then he's a bull in a china shop, and you can see that he might have been misunderstood a little bit, but he's different, in a sense that he's so intense and he's so about winning, and he wants to win. And he hadn't won for like 8-9 years here, and then all of a sudden won. And I think he's one of those guys, and I'll talk about the old breed, maybe like the Patrick Roys of the world, right? Those guys are wired differently. Patty had won one cup, won another one. I'd won 2, won another one. I'd won 3, won the 4th one, right? Those guys, you guys know that. I mean, they're wired differently. He just is. Like, it's you can't make them. I think there's just a few that are like that. Right. He is like that. He brings everybody like, with him, and sometimes, like I said, too much, to an extent. But I think, I mean, his season this year was absolutely phenomenal. I mean, the consistency of, you're talking about one game, like 2 games to go in the season, where you could arguably debate that he did get a point. That, I mean, whatever. I mean, right? I mean, and then whatever the shutout. I don't remember. Was it Winnipeg? Was that home or on the road? And it doesn't matter. One game where he doesn't get a point out of 42 games, and that's pretty incredible. I mean, it's pretty. I mean, it's amazing. You're talking about Gretzky, and I'm a big Wayne fan, so it's like you're talking about the same sentence. And he's been amazing, and Pierre's right. Like, I think you have no choice but to follow suit, but to follow what he does in practice, and it's well documented about all his, like eating and all. Obviously, the new athlete, right? That's so in tune to their bodies and what they. And he's been just tremendous. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know how many more cups they got in them, but I tell you one thing: like, the will to win is pretty phenomenal. Yeah. And I think just with that, and I always tell people around here when they get disappointed in things that, but if those top guys don't score, I'm like, but that's how they're built. That's how they're built. I mean, that's how they're built. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no crap, right? I mean, like, so, but those guys usually, deliver. And then obviously, I mean, just to give you the standard that Nate's brought, obviously, you know, with Gabe and those guys, and of course Joe and Chris McFarland. Again, like I said, I'm a big Bednar fan as well. Those guys have been awesome and so consistent. But now you're talking about, and I'm going to sound so stupid what I'm going to say, but you're talking about a bad 90-point season from Cale Makar this year. Right. And that's right. But that's what, right. That's what the expectations are here. It's crazy, you know, which is awesome. And they're loving it and they're embracing it. And I think it starts with Nate, like Pierre said. I agree with that.
I want to talk about, too, you talk about Nathan wanting to keep everybody accountable and how hard he works in practice. He recruited, he did a great job in getting Jonathan Drouin to Colorado. And we all know the turnaround that he had this season. I imagine that maybe being back with Nathan MacKinnon was exactly what Drouin needed at this point in his career. Talk about the relationship they've had and just the, you know, the renaissance, so to speak, of Drouin's career right now.
It's been fantastic. And I'll raise my hand. Like, I didn't see it. I didn't believe in it when they signed it. I was like, are you kidding me? All right. You're trying to rekindle something from back then. That was great in juniors. And I thought that Jonathan, as an athlete, had such a rough couple of years, right? You know, and as we know, Pierre, I mean, the Montreal market is a tough one, and
especially when you're from there.
Oh, exactly. I mean, I understand. I wasn't a good player, but I mean, those guys are
okay. Stop right there.
But you know, you know what but you know what I'm saying. Like, it was, you know, those guys are so like looked upon, right? It's like, you know, it's a microscope, and I think it just wasn't the right fit for him. And I was talking to Lappy that Pierre knows well and recruited at St. Lawrence, you know, Dan Lapierre that works with the Avs, and him and I were talking about this. It was more like, you know, what were you guys thinking? He's like, hey, listen, it's, you know, it's a long shot. But when you think about it, it's a low risk, high reward signing. And I'll be honest with you, and I don't know if you guys were following the Avs enough, but the first 10 games were ugly. It was not pretty. Like, he was scratched. He was not, I mean, he was struggling. And I think Bednar was trying to break him in somehow, right? This is how you're going to be important to us. This is how you're going to, you know, become a part of this team, a regular, and the missing maybe piece that they've lost the last years, right? They've lost Burakovsky. They've lost guys like that, right? You need some more offense. You know, Kadri, I don't care if he's a center or not. Like, I'm saying, they've missed on a few goals the last couple of years. Obviously, when you win the cup, that's what happens. So I think there was an opportunity for him. He struggled with it at first. I really was like, yeah, this is not working. No, all right.
I was the same way. No, I remember
said it didn't work. Exactly. And then, and all of a sudden something clicked, and I raised my hat to him. He was awesome. Like, he was awesome all year. And then you feel for him the last game. He just gotta, I'm laughing now because it's like, man, what are the odds? And then all of a sudden he gets the freak injury, like fluky injury. And then obviously they're saying he's skating. He might be back this round.
I was just going to ask you any update on that. So
yeah. He's starting to. He hasn't skated yet, but he's around the team because it's a cut on his leg. I still don't understand how he got cut on his leg. I don't think I ever. I think what they keep showing is not how he got cut on his leg. I don't know, but so he hasn't skated yet. But I think he's you know, he's been around the team. They do believe he might be here this round, you know, and Landeskog's around the team as well. He's been going on the ice, and I don't think he's that close, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm a big Gabe fan, so I wish he was close. I don't know. He hasn't really had a real practice with the. I mean, so you're talking about 2 years, right? Not like 2 weeks. You're talking about 2 years. So, but Drouin, I tip my hat to him. I tell you, and it was a big blow. And a lot of people were talking about that. The Winnipeg series, like, oh my God, Drouin. Which at the start of the year you would have said, who cares? You know, now you're like, wow, that's a big blow. And then obviously, you know, you guys are well aware of guys like Lehkonen and Natushkin that, you know, obviously picked up the slack in the first round. And
playoff players. Really
unreal.
I mean, Lehkonen's been that way for a while. I mean, think of what he did in Montreal in 2021.
Yeah, I agree with that. Jimmy, one of the great things about the Lacroix family, the legacy that Eric's father has created in Colorado with hockey. Yeah. You know, Colorado College is on the come. Eric can speak to that because he's got a son playing at Boston University. University of Denver just won their 10th national championship. The Colorado Avalanche are just coming off a Stanley Cup and the potential to win another one. What was your father's vision, Eric, to grow the game in Colorado because he has his fingerprints all over the game in Colorado.
Yeah, and Pierre's right, and we talked at the Hall of Fame, and you and I about all this, and you're bang on. Like there's always been hockey here. Obviously, University of Denver's a long, with Ralph Backstrom and Peter McNabb. I mean, the list goes on, but it's been around for a long time. But youth hockey was not, you had a few associations. And as you saw in Dallas, like I want to say, Dallas got here like a year or two before the Avalanche, but all of a sudden you saw a lot of youth hockey, and you saw the same thing here. And I think now you're looking at 12, 13, 14 associations and so many kids playing youth hockey. And you're right. I mean, my dad would be smiling right now for sure, because you're looking down the road, and they call that the I-25 corridor, which you have, like you said, Colorado College, was in the top 10, right, for most of the season last year. And then you get down here, and then you have University of Denver. So and then I forgot, sorry, there's Air Force in between the two as well, right?
I that up too.
Yeah. No, but you talk about 3 Division I schools right there, NCAA Division I schools, and then you got the Avalanche, and now you have down the other way, 15 minutes outside, north of the city, towards Fort Collins, you have the Colorado Eagles. So that is now an American Hockey League franchise, and now you have the Colorado Grit that's right there with the NAHL, right? So you're talking about from the NAHL to the NHL, inside 1 hour each way. You know what I mean? There's a lot of hockey here in Colorado, which is it's good, and it's fun. And where it used to be maybe just, the University of Denver, maybe a minor league hockey team, the Denver Rangers back then, or whatever it was, you know what I mean? Yeah. So, it's gone a long way.
Your dad would be so excited. Your dad's looking down. He's really excited, I can tell you that.
That's nice. Nice of you to say.
Just more on your dad, too. I remember I met him, God, I'm going back maybe 2006 with Russ Conway at the Hall of Fame. Yep. And he knew Russ really well, and Russ would rave about him. But I just tell you, he had that aura about him. You know what I mean? You just meet some people and you can kind of feel that you're in the presence of greatness. What was it like learning from him, both as a son and also just how he helped you in your career?
No, absolutely. And my dad had, I'll say a French expression here that Pierre will know, maybe you won't, but he can explain it to you. But he always went by, it's called GBS, right? GBS, gros bon sens, big common sense. And my dad just kind of always said, it's all about common sense, and I think he was, and you're right, he was a larger than life, like presence, when he walked into a room, and he just cared about people. And I think he was a people person. Like he was a person that didn't go to school. He didn't, I think he was just a common sense guy that really wanted to create family atmosphere, like whether it was with his clients or with, becoming a National Hockey League GM. And I think the biggest part for him is to treat everybody with respect and treat everybody like a family. And I think that common sense is a big thing. And I saw also, like, he used to tell us all the time, like Craig Billington and I were working under him at the Avalanche. The Avalanche. He was, I'll give you guys my Harvard education in hockey. Just follow, But he was, and he was awesome to let us like be on, conversations and things like that. But it always came back to one thing, and he was always telling people like, "Oh, we're not going to tell them what it is," But at the end of the day, it was like it's about details, you know what I mean? And that was a big word for him. He was a detail-oriented guy, and he made sure that he took away all the excuses for the players, whether it was an agent or a GM. Right? I'm going to take away all the excuses. Now they can just play. You know what I mean? Whether it's the flights or hotels or and I think that's how. A lot of people are saying that, which is fine. I mean, like, they inherited the Quebec Nordiques, and it's like everything was there, and that's why they won. I always go back to what he was saying. Hey, you can have a lot of ingredients, but if you don't have a recipe, it really means squat, right?
Yeah. And by the way, he went out and got the greatest goalie ever, too. So
but that's part of the recipe, right? Part of the recipe was,
those are the details that Eric's talking about.
Exactly.
I want to give you one more detail. He actually traded his son.
Yeah.
He traded his son to LA, right?
Yeah.
To LA.
I forgot about that.
But, I love what Eric just said, but I just want to say this because I'm so proud of Eric and his brother Martin. But the greatest tribute you could ever imagine for a father was at the Hall of Fame dinner that the Lacroix put on. Patrick Roy was there. Raymond Bourque was there. Michel Goulet was there. There was Denny Savard was there. The list was endless, and I feel bad. I don't want to miss anybody, Eric, but the way those men spoke in that small room at the restaurant we were in, that's a night I'll never forget.
Well, I agree with you, and I was so glad you were there. But that's probably one of the best nights of my life. You know what I mean? And for us, it's been a long few years here, and especially my mother and everything. But that night was kind of fun because it wasn't like, it's not a funeral. It's not, you know what I mean? It's not. It was kind of like it was awesome. It was fun, and it was. There was fun moments, and you could tell that he was appreciated, and he would have loved to be in there. Obviously, like it would have been great if he was there. Yeah. Even though he doesn't like the limelight, as Pierre knows, like he would have, that night, let the light shine on you a little bit. You deserve it, and I think that's what everybody was kind of saying there. But it was a magical night. I agree with Pierre.
Jimmy, I just want to say one more thing. When you're a son of a father, and then you all of a sudden have a family like Eric has. And then to be at the Hall of Fame at the Hall, and I was sitting with Scotty Bowman and Mike Murphy. I'm not kidding you. Max, Eric's son, spoke.
Oh, wow.
The induction.
That's great.
I got to ask you, I couldn't have kept it in. Like, I had tears. How were you doing with that? Max was phenomenal.
Yeah, it's funny you're saying that. And again, I'm going to sound like you said, bragging about your son, but that's not what it's about. I think Max was really tight with my father. They were best friends, and you hear that all the time. But it was truly his best friend, And I think that obviously when he passed away, it was part of that. Max was in prep school in Boston actually, and it was such a messed up year, and campus being closed, and if you wanted to play, you could play in New Hampshire. I mean, it was nuts, right? It was just nuts, and my dad had called Ray and Ray Boy. I said, hey, listen. My grandson's coming. Like, can he stay with you, or do you know anyone that would, be willing to take him on? And Ray was like, "I'll take him. What are you talking about?" So Ray was bored, and then Max was living at Ray's house, and then Ray became his chauffeur. And what I'm trying to say here is, it's funny because right before the induction, like a few months before, and Ray called me, and he's like, "Hey," and he's beating around the bush, and I didn't know what he's trying to say, and he was like telling me, like, basically, like, Max needs to speak, you know what I mean? Like, cause he got to know my son.
Yeah.
And, he lived with him for the year, and, and my son thinks he's a Bork, not a Lacroix. And in Boston, it's really favorable, right? I mean, think about it. It's easier. But anyway, and Ray was like, no, I think you should speak. And I was like, no, don't worry. My brother and I, we've already decided Max is speaking. And he was like, oh, good. He was like, he was all excited. And you're right. It's weird because you don't see a teenager usually do those types of things, but he really wanted to do it. And I think as a family, my brother and I were like, you know what? It's all set. It's perfect. We know he's going to deliver. But the funniest part was more like, is it TSN, right? TSN show, like the producers are like, are you sure? For a few weeks they're calling and emailing, are you sure he's gonna deliver? And I'm like, don't worry about it. Now right up to like right before, they're looking at me like, are you sure? In the front row, I'm like, don't worry, you're gonna be fine. You know what I mean? And
it's amazing. Like, when I've been in that situation, I had to speak at my dad's and at my grandmother's funeral. And you do, like, something comes over, you think maybe you're not gonna be able to handle it, but when you get up there, if it means so much to you, you're going to deliver. You're going to hit it right out of the park.
And it was the year of the goalies, right? My son's a goalie, so it was funny because Mike Vernon was like giving it to my son, like, what is wrong? What's wrong with you? Like, you're doing this voluntarily. I don't want to do it, like, but I have to do it. And Bernie was dying, and he was sweating, and he was like, "Oh God, I don't want to do this." And it was the funniest thing. But it was kind of nice of Mike to be nice to him, and all that stuff, and Tommy Barrasso and Lundqvist. So it was nice. It was fun. Like you said, it was a great moment, and we were proud of him. And it's a moment you'll never forget, right? So he was proud of himself, and he was proud that he did it for his grandpa.
Good stuff, Pierre.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be cheering for BU most nights, except for when they play Northeastern. I want Max to have a great year, except when they play Northeastern next year, Eric.
That's right.
It's fun at that bean pot, huh?
Oh, yeah.
I'll be sitting with Eric, and we'll be just like getting after
him. You guys. Looking forward to it.
I'll sit with you.
You've been kind to do this. Thank you, Eric. Please say to your mother for me and for Jimmy and I, and from the eye test. I'm thinking of her all the time, thinking about your family.
I love it. You guys call me anytime if you want anything. I do hope the Avs are are going to keep going here in this round. So I predict that they're going to win. So you guys call me anytime.
All right. Sounds good. We appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time. Eric Lacroix joining us here on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network. And that was great. That was great here.
That's intel. So just the stuff most people don't know. Like, he's there all the time.
Yep.
And he knows Nathan McKinnon. Like, he knows all these guys. He knows McGuire. He knows McKinnon. He knows all these guys. He knows Jared Bednar. He knows Chris McFarland. He knows he was teammates with Joe Sakic. Yeah. Like, that's intel. That's why we do these guys.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That was great. It's on you here to get them today.
No, we don't do the fluff guys. We do the guys that are on the ground that are there.
Exactly.
Really there.
Yeah. And you can tell he's wired into. I love the way he was talking about Nathan McKinnon too, because the people that know Nathan, you notice, Pierre, is a pattern, right? Like whether it's Sid or whether it's his teammates or somebody like Eric there, right? They always bring that up about how intense he is, but also how he's found a way to sort of balance it. And, you know, I'm sure he says to his teammates, hey, guys, listen, you got to have thick skin with me because I'm going to be psycho. That's it. You know, and it's nothing personal, but I'm going to ride you because we need to win. And I noticed that only the people that really know him well are the ones that talk about that. I
can just tell you, I've been in the league 34 years. I've seen a lot of intense guys. A lot of them that I had the privilege of coaching. One of them's a coach of the Vancouver Canucks right now. And I'm just telling you right now, those guys are unbelievable, and they were all intense. 66 was intense. 77 was intense. 68 was intense. 19 was intense. You know, 87 for Beacon, Hartford was unbelievably intense. Like, I had a lot of intense guys, okay? Like, really intense. I have never seen anybody, and I play college football too. I've never seen anybody
like McKinnon
more intense than McKinnon. Ever.
Here, what you saying? I remember, like, I think it was on the podcast here. You were telling us about, you know, when you were between the benches and you would just hear them.
Oh, like, and I looked over at the coaches and they're like, "It's okay, we're used to this. It's okay." I respect it because I was never as good, obviously never as good a player, but respect the intensity of the player because of the way he always carries it off. The one thing I'd say about Eric, his nickname was Choo Choo when we had him in college. And the reason we call him that is he would run people over. I know he was a little bit like Dustin Brown. Remember how Dustin would hit players in the forecheck? That's how Lacroix was. He was a big, physical, nasty player. And he had way better hands than people thought. He was a very useful player in the NHL, and a guy that I really enjoyed being around. And I loved recruiting him because I got to spend a lot of time with his dad over the recruitment of him and his brother.
Right. You know what else I love too about the Avs, Pierre, and I forgot to kind of react to it when he brought up Landeskog. They've done a great job, and this is what a winning culture is, of keeping him included nonstop and making him still feel part of the team, because we've discussed this before, Pierre, that one of the biggest obstacles when you get hurt is the mental obstacle and wanting to be there for your teammates and wanting to help them on the ice, and you can't. So to keep somebody feeling like they're part of the team like that, I just think is a brilliant idea, and it shows how classy they are.
So that goes back to the influence of Pierre Lacroix, and I'll just tell you what that is. And you heard Eric talk about it.
Yep.
The family. So Pierre started that in Quebec, and he brought that to Colorado, and he created a family, and it was a harmonious family. You can ask, Peter Forsberg, ask Raymond Bourque when he left Boston to go there, ask Patrick Roy. You ask Dave Reed, guy who came in from outside. And then you had the draft. Rob Blake would tell you. I mean, all these guys would tell you that he created a family. It was really important. And Joe Sakic was a huge part of that family, obviously. Yes. So Joe hasn't forgotten where he came from. Yeah. I want to tell you one Joe Sakic story. And
I would love it. Of course.
It's really quick. So the Canadian orientation camp before the 2010 Olympics was in Kelowna, BC.
Yep.
And before the team went up there, there was a golf tournament at Shaughnessy, I believe, in Vancouver, which is a top course there. And we all played in it. And then we got on a charter. There was all the players, the coaches, and Gord Miller and I, because we were doing the games in Vancouver. So we flew with the team on a charter from Vancouver to Kelowna, and we got off, and I was talking to Joe, and I said to Joe, I'm really excited to watch you play in your hometown in the Olympics. And he looked right at me and he says, I can't. I go, what? I'm not up to the standard. I'm going to hurt the team, and I don't want to do that. He goes, my game is not up to where it has to be to play. And he knew that himself. And I said, you're not playing in the Olympics? He says, no, I'm not going to play. And he knew. So that was one of those conversations you never would tape it because it would be, surreptitious to do that. But it was one of those where I'm like, what a man this guy is.
Yeah.
Amazing man.
Wow.
And he would, if he would have said, hey, I want to be on the team, he would have been on the team.
That's amazing, Pierre. That's a great story. It just shows you the leader he is.
He's a leader. He's a huge leader. And that's why when you tell me
hold himself back.
When you tell me about the Landeskog stuff, I know where that comes from. As much as I love the coaches there, and I do, it comes from Joseph.
Yep.
It comes from Joseph Sapai, and Joseph's amazing. I'm just telling you, he's an amazing guy.
So, I'm trying to remember now. So I'm wondering, did that sort of paved the way for Bergeron to get on that roster then, right? Because they had an open
Bergeron and Getzlaff and Perry, all those guys, Mike Richards, Rick, like those younger guys that were coming up. They had not played in 06 in Torino. Torino was an unmitigated disaster for Canada. But most of those young guys, if you think about it, Getzlaff was part of it. They all played in the 05 World Junior.
Yeah.
All those top guys were in the 05. So that's the best World Junior ever because it's the only time we had a nuclear winter. And most of those guys from all the countries should have been in the NHL. But because there was no NHL hockey, if they were of age, they were playing in Grand Forks, North Dakota. So that was kind of the testing ground.
Yeah.
All those guys from 2010.
What a move by Sakic to do that, though. Wow. Never heard of that.
I'll never forget him telling me that. And I don't know if he'll be mad at me or not for sharing the story, but the reason why I share it is it shows you the man that he is, how selfless he is, and how much he cares about doing the right thing.
That's great.
And that builds off the story on Landeskog. Joe Sakic wants to do the right thing for everybody involved in his organization.
Perfect. And that's why the Colorado Avalanche are a perennial Stanley Cup contender. All right, let's get to our questions. But before we do, I want to tell you about TCS Customs and Logistics, our sponsor. And I also want to say thank you to Michael Maislin for a wonderful message he sent us. We're proud to be teammates with you, Mike. And remember, for all you out there, unlock the full potential of your shipping operation with TCS Customs and Logistics. From around the corner to around the world, flatbeds to air freight, customs clearance to drawback consulting. TCS is a one-stop shop for all things transport, moving pieces and delivering a peace of mind. For a no-obligation customs or freight quote, contact them at sickpodcast@shiptcs.com. Again, that's sickpodcast@shiptcs.com. All right, lots of news, not just with the playoffs, Spear, around the league. We got the draft lottery going on tonight at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. We have a new coach hired in the NHL today. So let's get right to the questions because I'm sure those are some of the topics that our listeners and viewers want to talk about. What do we got? Samuel Mattei. There you go. Happy draft lottery night. Of the top 8 or so teams with a shot at winning the number 1 pick, which one do you think would Celebrini put them over the edge to contend for the postseason next year? That's a great question.
It is.
Yeah. And I don't know so I'll say if a miracle, and I mean a miracle, because I think it's something like 1.5%. I don't have the percentages up in front of me right now. I apologize. But I heard this today. Imagine if the Montreal Canadiens pulled off a miracle and got that pick, Pierre.
So
that would definitely put them to the next level.
We talk a lot, but we've never talked about the draft.
8.5% they're saying there.
Okay. We've never talked about the draft lottery, right?
Nope.
You and I, we never have.
Nope.
We talk about a lot of stuff.
Yep.
I'm agreeing with you. Montreal. If Montreal ever got Celebrini,
wow,
that would be a ripple effect around the Eastern Conference, but in particular, the Atlantic Division.
Yep.
Would change. I believe, I could be wrong, Jimmy, and look, we're just speculating here. I believe it would change how free agents would view going to Montreal.
Yeah. I agree with you. It would be huge. It would be
so big. It would be like when Chicago got Kane, Taves, Keith, Seabrook, and Crawford.
Yep.
They wouldn't need to get all those in Montreal because they got a lot of them. They only need to get the one guy.
Yep. And I think, you bring up Chicago, good segue there. I think that's another team that I don't know if it gets them into contention yet, but I think it makes them want to maybe go out and bring in some veterans to have a chance to contend for a playoff spot. Yeah, whereas if they don't get them, they still continue, I think, just on the path they're on right now.
That's well said. We agree.
All right, next question. Filterless Bear. Hey, Pierre, if you were Kent Hughes, would you rather spend a defenseman asset in a Zegers type trade or a second high pick for Seneke? I'd go Seneke, even though he'll be at least a year away. I think we're with you.
We're with you. We don't even have to go longer. Totally agree. It's a great point. Not even a factor. Seneke.
All right. Next question. Randy Workman. Jimmy and Pierre, does Marner get traded? I want to see what happens Friday first. My hunch is yes, but I want to see what these guys have to say on Friday.
I'm not prepared to say Marner, but I'm prepared to say one of those two. Marner or Nylander.
Yep.
I don't
remember Nylander was close last year, if I'm not mistaken, Pierre. Remember there was a lot of talk that he was on the market.
Yeah, but I don't like that's I get it, but I would just say I think one of those two guys is going to get traded. Not both of them, one of the two.
All right, we shall see. Next question. Joe, question: who will coach in New Jersey?
I think it'll be a big name.
Me too.
It'll be a really big name. So I don't know, but I can tell you one thing. One piece of history that most people forget: Joel Quenneville played for the New Jersey Devils. I'm not saying he's going there.
Wow, I totally forgot about that. You're right.
You might not have been born yet, but I think I could be wrong, but I think that they're going to get a big name coach. They're not going small. They're going to go big.
Well, I just look at it this way, Pierre, and we're big fans of Tommy Fitzgerald, but I tell like it is. That's what I try to do, and I think that this is obviously a huge year for him and his status as GM in the New Jersey Devils. So he's got to swing for the fences, in my opinion, and I think he does. I also think he's going to be very active on the free agent and trade market. I think there's a big name player might wind up in New Jersey.
Hey, they just brought in a kid from the University of Michigan, Seamus Casey. Oh, he's a mobile, big defenseman. Mm-hmm. They weren't sure they were going to get him out this year. They got him out.
Remember that? Yep.
He's a good player. He's a really good. His game is going to translate fantastically well to the National Hockey League. I think we're going in the right direction. Cheers.
Yep. Next question. Jeffrey B. Hey, gentlemen, what do we make of Travis Green being hired as a new Sens coach? I still feel like the Sens need more vets like Giroux, but getting Green will bring accountability. Thoughts? Well, first of all, congratulations to Travis Green. I covered him back in the day when he spent some time with the Bruins. So congratulations to him. But Pierre, what's your take on that?
I'm really happy for Travis. I don't think even though he was the interim coach in New Jersey, I don't think he was going to get that job.
No.
So the fact that he's landed on his feet pretty quickly after being dispatched in Vancouver is tremendous for him, especially with the player pool that's out there.
Yep.
So I think I'll take you behind the scenes a little bit on this. There's a sense of familiarity. Travis Green is part of Newport Sports Management. Steven Stahouse was the president of hockey operations and GM, represented by Newport Sports Management. So they've known each other and have been friends for a long time. I think there's a mutual respect there. I think the interview process probably went fantastically well. And I like what the questioner just said. I think it was Jeffrey B. There's going to be a level of accountability. Part of Travis Green's coaching tree is having played for Al Arbor. I think when you do that, when you play for somebody like that, and he also played for the late Pat Quinn, who I'm a huge fan of in Toronto. So he's got a more of a hard edge mentality.
Right.
I think that's something that Ottawa needs at this point.
I would agree. And Rich, I mean, who asked that question? Was it Jeffrey B? Yeah, Jeffrey B pointed that out. The accountability is going to be there now in the Ottawa dressing room. All right, next question. A to Z me. Hey, gents, Bruins couldn't have played a better game one. Actually, we'll get to that in a bit. Does Montgomery dare change the chemistry by playing Allmark now? Now, that would be brave. Ouch. I think Pierre and I are in unison when we say, no, you leave Swayman in right now. As we were talking about him earlier to open the show, he is in one of those zones right now. You just let it go. You just let him ride this right now. And if he falters, then maybe you revisit it. But I think you just let that be right now.
Yeah,
all the things that you line up, you don't touch that.
Don't tinker too much.
Yep. Don't. Yep. So, but back to the beginning of the question. And I think, Pierre, you're with me, and we were speaking about this to our production crew. We respectfully disagree that they couldn't have played better. I do think the Bruins could have played better. I think they got away with some stuff in that game because I don't think Florida was where they needed to be, and Pierre said that earlier in the show.
Yeah, and the goaltending, Swayman covered up a lot of blemishes defensively.
Which he continues to
do.
They
won the game, so,
that's all that matters.
You don't get extra points for style.
Yep.
Just win the game. That's all you got to do.
Yep, I like it. I will say this, though. I thought they did do a good job of details, as we were just discussing with Eric. Their details were there, especially defensively. All right, next question. HDR DGS. Jimmy, Pierre, who wins the cup this year? Oh. I got the Canucks, but I don't know. I picked them. That's who I picked. I don't know. I think this is one of these years where I can't remember it being this much of a crapshoot, Pierre. And I
don't do that publicly. I've told the story before, but what I do is I send my picks to Jimmy and to other people so they see them before. Yeah. But I don't do it just because I don't want any of my friends who I deal with a lot getting mad at me. And it happened once earlier in my career where I picked against a friend of mine's team and it didn't go well. And for him, it didn't go well for me because he was mad at me. And I don't want to do that. It's just not worth it for me. But I do send my picks to whomever I'm working with, and they know.
I think, Pierre, you wouldn't be afraid to say, though, right now that there's still multiple teams that could pull that off. It's not
going into the playoffs. I thought there's 16 teams going in. I thought there were 7 legitimate candidates to win the cup.
Me too. All right.
7.
Next question. Clara Capoletti, who do you like in game 2 tonight? Rangers or Canes? I think the Canes are going to have a much better game. I think they're going to be much more disciplined. I don't see Brenda Moore letting that slide as it did in game 1. So I think you're gonna get a much better game from them. That's what I'll put. I don't know who will win, but that's all I'll say about that.
That's a good answer. So here's what I'm going to be looking for. If the Canes are going to win, if they are, their face-off play needs to be better. Their penalty killing needs to be better, and they have to initiate better on the forecheck. If they do those 3 things, I think they'll win. If they don't do those 3 things, I think they're going to have a tough time winning.
Yep, I agree. All right, next question. Sean Myers, Pierre, what are the odds Demidov ends up being better than Celebrini down the road?
I don't know. So that's a fair question from Sean. Very fair question. The thing, and I've told this to Jimmy before because I've watched Celebrini so much practice and games. He doesn't need to score to influence the outcome of a game.
Exactly.
He can have an off night and still be a really important player for you. I don't know if Demidov can do that. Doesn't mean he can't. I just don't know. I haven't seen that part of it yet, but I have seen that from Celebrini. So that's why I think Celebrini will always be good. He'll always be a very reliable player.
All right. Next question. Randy Workman, Jimmy and Pierre, do you think Quinn would fit the Leafs as a head coach?
Which Quinn?
Oh, David Quinn.
David.
I know. Where my mind went, Pierre. I went back in time.
I was thinking of the late, great Patrick.
Who was the coach of the Leafs.
Who was, and the manager. I talked to David. I don't think. I know David wants to get back coaching. I know he does. I'd be surprised if it would be in Toronto, though. I'd be really surprised. Can I tell you a good Pat Quinn story before we go to our next question? I'll make it fast.
I love Pat. He was awesome.
So the 2009 World Juniors in Ottawa, and everybody's staying at the Westin Hotel in downtown Ottawa. And Canada played an exhibition game, at the Bob Gurtan Arena in Hull.
Okay.
So Gordon Miller and I were there. And right after, and Evander Kane played great. He played great.
Okay.
And after the game's over, they cut Evander Kane. They cut him.
I remember that. Yeah.
So Gordon and I have to do a stand-up for Sports Center live from the Bob Gurtan Arena because it's going on, it's right before the tournament starts.
Yep.
So Gordon, I said, Gord, just ask me about Evander Kane because what's happened to him is not fair. It's not fair.
Yep.
So I went on this little rant about how they made a mistake and Evander Kane should be on the team and this is really bad. And first time I've disagreed with Hockey Canada in a real long time. And, the coaches need to give their head a shake on this one. There were other players, I won't give you their names, that shouldn't have been there. So I'm walking through the hotel.
I see where this is going.
In Weston, in Ottawa. And this gigantic hand grabs me from behind and whacks me, but good. So I'm ready to go. Like I got my hands. I'm like, this is some crazy fan. And I turn around and it's Coach Quinn. I want to talk to you. He had the cigar at the side of it. And it wasn't lit. It was just out the side.
Yeah.
And his wife, Sandra, was there. And I'm like, I can't believe he's doing this to me. So he pulls me aside. And he goes, don't worry. Kane's coming back. We have an injury. It has nothing to do with what you said. And I was like, Coach, it's the best news ever. He says, enough. He's coming back. I said, okay.
He was great.
I thought he was going to knock me out. I was ready for it.
The cigar, man. He was just like Red Auerbach with that cigar, eh?
But you know what? I'm going to tell you, Jimmy, he was larger than life.
Oh, yeah.
His players loved playing for him.
Yeah.
He treated
One
them.
of those guys.
He really treated them like men.
Yeah.
But if you didn't do what he asked you, he was hard too.
Yeah.
But I had the most amazing experiences with him. I'm so grateful. I got to coach against him as a head coach and as an assistant coach. I have so much respect for the late Coach Quinn. So much.
Yep. He was a great man. All right. Next question. A to Z me. If I'm allowed a second question. Yes, you are, my friend. I not only found it a little odd that Dubois was selected for Team Canada, I find it baffling that Celebrini and Fantilli were removed for him.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
So we got to be careful here. It's important to be careful on this.
Okay.
Celebrini's 17 years old. It's been a long year. He played World Junior, got to the NCAA tournament. A lot of hockey, played in a bean pot, a lot of travel, going to be the first overall pick. The draft shows tonight. There's a lot of moving parts on him. Fantilli's coming off an injury. Mm-hmm. And, Rick Nash is the GM of Canada.
Yep.
Where does Fantilli play? He plays in Columbus. Yep. Rick Nash's day job is with Columbus.
Exactly.
There's a lot of moving parts on this. I want to be fair to Rick, and I want to be fair to those kids. Until those kids speak, we shouldn't say much about this. Because, what happens if Fantilli says, you know what? I wasn't good enough to play. Like, my leg's just not good enough. I can't play. What happens if Celebrini says, you know what? My representatives don't want me to risk it.
Yeah.
Because I haven't signed a contract.
Yep. I'll tell you what happens, Pierre. You're going to feel a big Rick Nash hand on your shoulder. What did you say?
Yeah. So I'm gonna back those guys up, though, Jimmy.
Exactly. I'm with you.
I get it. I totally get it. Everybody wants those young guys playing. But if you're okay, let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
You're Celebrini's parents, and you're Celebrini's agent.
Yep.
He's not getting paid to play in this.
Exactly.
What?
We need him fresh when
what
the season
gets hurt?
Yeah, I know.
I'm
totally with you.
Everybody saying, well, Pierre, he played in the World Junior. Yeah, you know why he played in the World Junior? He was establishing his draft record. He was establishing where he was in the pecking order. That's already been established. He's not doing anything now. He's not dropping down from number one. He's number one.
Exactly. And you know what else, Pierre? For anyone that's saying, well, you should always play when your country comes calling. He already did that. So check. That's off the list. He did that.
He's done it more than once. I mean,
yeah.
By the way, I'm starting to think Gavin McKenna.
Oh my gosh, Pierre.
I'm just starting to think.
Pierre, and maybe you can just I know we're running tight on time, but
we're good for now. We just got to get all the questions. I don't want to leave anybody hanging on the list.
You know what? We'll touch on that. Let's touch on that tomorrow. I'll write that down.
I'm putting on paper right now. Gavin McKenna.
Yeah, I want to talk about that too because I heard you talking to Mitch.
That kid to me, I've seen a lot of really good young players over the course of my career. I've been so blessed to see these young guys play. This guy's he's special.
A real deal.
He's really
all right. Next question.
Really special.
Eric Landreau, what would you rather have going into the playoffs? An offense like Colorado or a defense goalie like Dallas? It's a
defense goalie like Dallas for me. I've had it both ways. Defense goalie, and I've seen lots of different ways that St. Louis won with defense and goalie. They won a Game 7 in Boston, and if it's not for Jordan Binnington, they don't win that game. They didn't have the offensive firepower that the Bruins had. No chance. No chance. It can go either way.
It can go either way, but I feel like defense and goalie wins more often than just offense. So
I'll give you an example. New Jersey had that amazing run in the 90s. Then Colorado had that, but people forget. And you made the point really well before. Patty Roy was a goalie. Raymond Bourque was there. Robbie Blake was there. You start looking at the guys they had there. Sandis Olsenich was there. Like they had big depth on defense. Big depth and big time presence in goal.
Yeah. And look at Vegas last year. With
couldn't
that.
get to the net. Aiden Hill won the Stanley Cup, and you couldn't get to the net for second chance opportunities.
Couldn't.
Because they were just big Vegas trees in the middle of the desert. You couldn't get by them.
Yep. I'm with you. All right. Next question. Sean Myers, how much of an advantage does Colorado have at home with the altitude?
Gigantic.
Really, it is a gigantic advantage. All right. Next question. JRG Production. Do we like Cole Eiserman or Caden Lindstrom for the Canadians?
I'm either or. I've been on the record since probably November, Jimmy.
Yep.
I thought Eiserman would be in the wheelhouse for the Canadians. Lindstrom is a good player, very talented kid, with good size too. You want the size. For the viewers out there and the listeners, all Eiserman does is score. He's not going to be on the ice at the end of a game to check. He's not going to be on the ice defending a lead or killing a penalty. You need a goal. You need a power play goal. You need a goal to get back in a game. That's what he'll do.
That's your guy. All right. Next question. Bilal Abdelmalik. Hey, guys, I'm pumped to see my Oshawa Generals face off against the Knights. Pierre, any chance Oshawa pulls it off?
They can, but they got to play 5-on-5. The power play that's run by Oliver Bonk in London and Easton Cowan. It's the power play in London's really good, Jimmy. So, Bonk's a Philadelphia prospect. Cowan is a Toronto prospect. He was just named MVP of the Ontario Hockey League. For Oshawa, it's pretty simple. You got to play 5-on-5. Now, I think I told you a week ago or 2 weeks ago, a friend of mine was going in there to scout, and he said the thing that he's really impressed with Ottawa, they play big.
Nice.
They play a big presence kind of a game. So I think that's the one way they can, but again, you can't take penalties against London. You just can't.
All right, next question. Alex Ivanowski, best guess who wins the draft lottery tonight? What fan base are you pulling for the most? My best guess is, and I won't say why, but the San Jose Sharks, I think, are going to win it.
I'm not even touching that because you know what? So much stuff. You say one thing, Jimmy, about this, and people will say, well, he knew it was fixed.
Do you see?
No.
I know.
I'm not saying anything.
My tongue bleeding.
I'm not saying anything.
Me neither. Me neither. I'm not talking about this. All I will say, if you're asking what fan base I'd love to see get it, it's Montreal Canadiens because I love that market. It's part of me, and also I think it's just better for the NHL when the Montreal Canadiens are competitive and competing for a playoff spot.
I'm not going to say because there's so many places that really deserve a player like Macklin Celebrini.
Here's one, and our buddy Jeff Marek was talking about this earlier today. I was listening to Pierre. How many times has Anaheim been right there and almost got the number one pick? Think of what would have happened if they got Sidney Crosby.
The pain of 05, I'll never forget it. I was in the room. It was Lord Miller, Bob McKenzie, James Duthie, and I representing TSN. And up front, Jimmy Rutherford was there for Carolina. Brian Burke was there for Anaheim. And Craig Patrick was there for Pittsburgh. Okay?
Mhm.
I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
And they did it in reverse order. And rather than say who the second pick was, they said who the first pick was. So number 2 knew they weren't getting it because they said who 3 was, and then they said who 1 was. So they didn't waste their time on 2.
Yeah.
Well, Berkey ended up at 2 with Anaheim. They got Bobby Ryan. Number 3 was Jack Johnson in Carolina. So all I heard was a big thump.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So there's been a couple other times they've been right there, too, Pierre.
It's a tough one. That
would be a good story. All right, next question. Samuel Matei, to continue with Junior, do you see a path for Drummondville to knock off Bay Como in the Q final?
I'm going to say no.
Okay. Pierre, where's Bay Como, by the way, in Quebec?
It's on the north shore of the St. Lawrence River. And there's a ferry that runs from Bay Como over to Rimouski.
Okay.
When I was a little boy, for all those that are watching in the province of Quebec, I used to spend a lot of summers at my grandmother's house near Montjoli, Quebec. They'll know where that is, right near Price, Quebec.
Beautiful.
That's not far
country.
It's not far from Rimouski. Back then, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
I rode my bike to the bakery because the whole town, you could smell the baker. The
Cool. That's
so I was like maybe 4 or 5 years old. I'd be riding my bike down the street to go get the bread and bring it back to my grandmother's house.
You're the bread man. All right, next question. Alex Ivanowski, what type of player would you compare Demidov to? I hear people are saying Kucherov.
That's a fair comparison.
Right.
I don't like doing that to the young guys. Like I've said it right from the start, Jimmy, and you started to see people say the same thing when I was talking about Celebrini. I said it's Jonathan Taves, maybe with a better shot.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to do that. The first time I did that was with Crosby. I'll just tell you what happened. I said he's got the peripheral vision of Wayne Gretzky. He's got the playmaking ability of Mario, and he's got the down low strength of Peter Forsberg. Well, you should have seen the outcry. It was like heresy. You can't compare that player to Gretzky and Lemieux. And
if you get asked the question, what are you supposed to do?
Has to do it. Believe me, I took it in the shorts pretty hard. And if you look at it now, so that was 2005. We're almost 20 years later. Was I a little bit right?
You were a lot right, in my opinion.
Okay. Just
all right.
Nobody ever apologized, Jimmy.
Of course not. Next question. Sean Myers, did you see Slavkovsky today?
I did.
He was?
He was really good. So, Sean, the only thing I need to caution you on, having done a bunch of world championships, this is a pre-tournament game. Guys are just getting there. Nobody wants to get hurt. The local fans are pumped up to see him, obviously.
Yeah.
Everybody knows when the Canes took him, I said it was the best pick. And I really thought the world of Logan Cooley in that draft. And so that was one guy I thought Montreal might think about. But yeah, he was good. He was good. But don't get too crazy. It's a pre-tournament game. Don't get too crazy.
Pump the brakes. All right, next question. Randy Workman. I was wondering, Pierre and Jimmy, have you seen a D-man like Artyom?
Yeah. So I saw him play a lot at Michigan State this year, and I watched him play in the NCAA tournament. He's big. He's mobile. He's good. I think he's a year away. I think he's one of those guys that's not going to be that long to play in the league.
Is he a first rounder, Pierre?
Oh, yeah, he's going to go. He's probably going to go 2, 3, 4 right in there.
Oh, wow, right in there, eh?
Yeah, no, he's depending on what your appetite is as a team, but he's legit. He's going to play in the league, and he's going to be one of the guys. Like I think if Celebrini goes first, which he will. There'll be a lot of pressure for him to go, but he could do what Owen Power did and go back to Michigan.
Yep.
It didn't hurt Owen Power. Didn't hurt him at all. And then you get an extra World Junior in you. The team that drafts you, and it's probably not going to be a very good team. Obviously, they're going to be a year better. You're going to be more physically mature. So I think Celebrini is NHL ready to play. This kid's not far from being NHL ready to play. In a year from now, he'll be ready to play in the league.
I'm just going to say, Pierre, I still think there's a chance Celebrini goes back. Slight chance.
So I think, and again, like most people now know.
Yeah, this is opinion. This isn't any.
This is but Hockey East right now is setting up with Ryan Leonard going back. It looks like Will Smith's going back. Gabe Perreault's coming back. You got Hagen's coming over from the World Under-18s. You look at all the kids that are going to be going to BC. You look at all the kids. Yzerman's going to BU, and he's friends with Celebrini. Like, you got a lot going on here, and you look. And again, people, I get it. Fans don't pay attention to the portal. Merrimack and Hockey East did unbelievably well in the portal. Maine did unbelievably well in the portal. Northeastern did really well in the portal. Like, Hockey East next year, every game is going to be like a Stanley Cup Game 7. Yeah. It's crazy how good that league is going to be if all these guys decide to stay.
Yeah, you never know. Unfinished business. Unfinished business. That's all I'll say. All right, next question. Pascal Bolduc, what does a Q need to earn some respect? The NAHL is better?
Question no, who said that?
I don't know who says that, Pascal.
No, I don't know Pascal. I spent a lot of time watching. My son got drafted in the Quebec Major Junior League. I let him go to camp there, and then I pulled him out because I wanted him to go to college. But no, I don't. Not on this show.
Well, if anyone's saying that, they're not watching.
Yeah, I know this. Nathan McKinnon came from the Quebec Major Junior League. Sidney Crosby came from the Quebec Major Junior League. Jonathan Drouin came from there. Patrice Bergeron, Patrick Roy. Like, I can keep going if you want. Yeah. You know, Marc-Andre Fleury. I mean, I can keep going. Nobody on this show said that.
Yeah.
No.
All right, next question. Alex Ivanowski, what do you think of Mason Lohrei play so far? I meant to ask last week. I am so impressed that kid can play. He's gotten even better since you meant to ask. I'll put it that way, Alex. He's unreal. You know, I just did a story on Boston Hockey Now up here, and I went back. I actually had, I think I told you about it when I interviewed him. It was right before he got sent down to Providence for the final time. And then, of course, he came back up for the playoffs. Anyhow, he just, and you've probably seen this as a coach, Pierre. You ever, I don't know, if a player you can think of with Pittsburgh or whatever, you're in the playoffs and you got a rookie and it's, you know, he's skilled, but you don't know if he can handle the moment, but he's just sort of got that right. And I don't mean this in a mean way. The aloofness that maybe sometimes a rookie needs, just sort of like, I'm just having fun. Like, he just sort of, maybe, I'm not saying it in a mean way again, maybe he doesn't understand the magnitude of what he's doing right now, but it almost helps him that way. And so I see that a lot in his play right now, because he's not really hesitating or thinking about any of his decisions. He's just doing it and he's going with his gut, and I like it.
I like that. I think that's good. Okay. Here's the one thing I'd say about him. He was a really good pick. He was a second-round pick in the 2020 draft. Jimmy and I talked about this morning.
He did, right before the show, yep.
He played for the Green Bay Gamblers, saw him play in the USHL. And what I would say is, you knew that the Bruins stole him at that number. The problem with the 2020 draft was there were a lot of really good defensemen. I think he was the 12th or 13th defenseman. 14th, okay. Yep. Thank you. Taken in that draft. So that just shows you there was an abundance of defensemen. He was really good. You know what's a cool part of the story? Patrick Maroon's son got drafted the other day by Green Bay.
Oh, wow.
And so Lohrei and Maroon are teammates, and that's where Lohrei came from, the Green Bay Gamblers, before he went to Ohio State. And now Maroon's son just got drafted by them. I think he was a 7th or 8th round pick by Green Bay. Yeah.
I guess I guess in the off season, even before Maroon came to the Bruins, he was telling us that his kid, they were here looking at schools or whatever and stuff, and Charlie Coyle hooked him up with a rink to practice and stuff. So
I know where Charlie hooked him up for a rink.
Yeah, I do too. But it's cool. So that's a good tie right there. Thank you. That's a little story for me, Pierre. Thank you for that connection. All right, next question. HDR DGS. If Montreal picks Celebrini, does Doc move to the wing? Thanks.
Okay.
Can you imagine? All right. Let's go.
Let's just calm down.
Next question.
Oh.
State of survival. How weak is this draft? Any comparison to past years?
I told this to Jimmy a while ago.
Yeah.
The first round is good. It's solid. It's not nearly as deep as – it's not a good draft to have a lot of picks in the middle rounds. You'll always find somebody good, but this is not an overly deep draft.
Yeah.
I think next year is actually going to be deeper, which is good. There's been no draft like the 2003 draft. There's been no draft like that. Joe Pavelski was 205th in that draft.
It's crazy. That was amazing.
Shea Weber and Patrice Bergeron were second-round picks. David Backes was a third or fourth-round pick. Like, if you go look at that draft, it's crazy where guys are going.
Amazing. All the Stanley Cups that came out of it, too.
It's unbelievable. So that's the best draft ever. This one's not even close to that, but there's some very obviously really good players in the first. Yeah. I'd say the first 12 picks really good. Like
it seems a little top heavy. That's all.
That's. Thank you, Jimmy. That's
all right.
Yep.
Next question. Alex Ivanovsky. Also, why do you NHL scouts and GMs aren't as high on Yzerman as they were going into this year?
I'm high on Yzerman.
Yeah, Pierre's
not an NHL scout or GM.
Yeah,
I'm just a fan.
I've talked to some people that are decision makers that like him a lot. I'll put it that way. I think it was I don't know where it got started. There was something about he doesn't interview well. I don't know about that.
Well, I told you the story. A friend of mine went and interviewed him. A friend of mine interviewed him, and he said, I could see how some people would be a little nervous, but not for us. We'd love to have him.
Yeah.
Because he's confident. He's very respectful. He knows how to do what he does best, and that's score goals. And he knows what he needs to work on.
Yep.
It's pretty simple.
All right. Next question. JRG Production, Edmonton versus Vancouver. Just speculation here since anything can happen in the playoffs. But who has the upper edge going into the series?
I would say Edmonton because of the goalie situation in Vancouver. And it's not a knock on, obviously Seeloffs or Casey DeSmith. But, Thatcher Demko not being there, that's a big ask.
Yeah.
They need Pettersson. Jimmy, I don't know what you're hearing or what – he didn't practice today.
Yeah, something's up.
So I don't know, virus, whatever. Yeah. They need him to have his A game because they won 4 games against Edmonton this year. He was really good against them. They need him to be healthy and going. And if not, then I think Edmonton's got the advantage.
Yeah, and the power play too for Edmonton is going to be something.
Here's it. Okay, I'll give you that, but I know Tocchet pretty well.
I was going to say, if there's someone that can coach against it.
I know Foote pretty well. I think those guys are going to have an idea of what they're going to do. And it might surprise Edmonton. We'll see.
All right, next question. Mitch Balin, what's your critique on Clark Caswell? Montreal needs more left wingers.
We're not talking about the draft. I'm not critiquing any kids. I'm only going to be positive about kids.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know anything about them, so I can't answer that question. So I apologize, Mitch. Next question. Alex Ivanovsky, a lot of the experts have ranked the Bruins prospect pipeline as one of the worst. If Lowry and Lysell hit, look out. The Bruins can draft. I know everyone gives them hell for 15, but they can draft. I agree with the complete premise of that. I don't know if Lysell is going to hit, but I do think they draft better than people knock them
They do, but here's the one thing. To be fair, and Donnie knows, I think the world of Donnie. 15 was tough. One of the big ones on 15 is they missed on Shabbat.
Yeah.
The guy that you did take, I'm not going to say who.
Yeah.
You can say it, I'm not. He's not.
I'll just say it was his partner in juniors. So
I'm saying he was his partner in St. John. So
yeah.
Anyways, there were some good players, but look at how, go look at the 03 draft for all those people that want to go after Boston. Go look at the 03 draft and look at how many teams missed on certain players. Yeah. Look what the Rangers did. Look what Montreal did. You tell me if they did well. In a can't miss draft, they missed.
Yeah, and the other thing I hate, the knock on the Bruins too, sorry to go on here. I know we got to get to the end here, but just quickly is the way people say that their organization can't develop young players.
That's not true.
Sorry. Did Patrice Bergeron not develop under them? Did Charlie McAvoy not develop under them? Did Brandon Carlo not develop under them? Is Jeremy Swayman not developing under them?
No, it's not true. It's just
a false narrative.
A lot of that starts on your talk radio there in Boston. I think it does, and it's not fair. I'm just telling you, it's not fair.
And another thing to Pierre Devent, people today trying to say that Jeremy Swayman's already better than Tuukka Rask. Pump the brakes, okay? He's good, and I think he's going to be a stud. But let's slow down a bit. And then they say, well, Tuukka Rask never stole a series. Pierre, you were at 2 series, and I know but the people can't fathom how you can say a sweep stealing a series. But did Tuukka Rask not steal 2013 conference final against Pittsburgh? And did he not steal 2019 conference final against Carolina? You agree?
Sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Just want to get the record straight there. All right. One more question. Or two more we got. Jean-Pierre Draskinas. Thoughts on LA Kings keeping Blake after 3 first-round exits versus the Oilers?
Yeah, I have no problem with it. I don't.
I think Blake's done a ton of good things that people aren't talking about.
They've got a pipeline, boy. Their American Hockey League team's ripping it up right now. They got a pipeline going there.
I understand what's going on. I understand Kings fans are frustrated, but if you take a step back, if you can do that, and you're watching and listening right now, and just think about some of the good things, they're going to far outweigh the bad things that's happened under Blake. That's all I'll say.
One of the things, you know what I'm going to try to do, Jimmy, here, and this is for the fan, because I do think we've got a lot of people in LA that are paying attention to the eye test. I'm going to try to get either Rob Blake on or Luc Robitaille on, because I like both guys a lot.
I love Luc.
I think, and you heard what I said about Luc. I think Luc's done an amazing job there.
Really
in a market where it's really hard to get the disposable dollars for hockey in particular. They've done a really good job, LA, and that's a lot on Luc. But I'm going to try, Jimmy, when we're a little bit deeper into the second round, try to get one of those two guys on, and maybe we can get both on. I don't know, but Rob might be overseas scouting. I don't even know. I have no idea, but I'll try. I'll try to get one of the two of them on.
All right. I think we got, and I see your comments, guys. Keep them in mind and bring them back to us tomorrow because we got to get to the end here.
And we apologize too. We'd take all the questions. We just have to do this now because
we just like to give you good answers. All right. Final question here. What do we got? Vincent Yoel. I love that. Every time I hear his name, I think of the character by John Travolta in Pulp Fiction, but that's another story. Happy around two gentlemen. If you could add or subtract games from the regular season, playoff, or preseason, would you? How do the players feel? I would, but I think the players are okay with it because it's more money, right? I mean, the preseason.
I would take preseason games out. The players don't get paid for those, and it's not a knock that I don't want the owners to do. Well, I want them to, but no, I would still play an 80 to 82 game schedule. I don't want to mess with the integrity of the scoring records. I think that's a really important part of it. We're the ultimate test in terms of endurance and character, and I don't want to shrink that. So the one thing I would do is I would take away preseason games. But I can also tell you this. When you have to run budgets, sometimes those exhibition games matter. I remember once, and I won't tell you the player, Jimmy, we traded a player for an exhibition game, but we got half the gate. It was a road game. We had to go, and they paid our expenses to travel, but we got half the gate. And that half gate paid for our entire training camp.
Wow.
So I'm just telling you, Jim, the player wasn't going to play for us, and he ended up being a good player for the other team, but not at the NHL level.
Yep.
But hey, I'll tell you one more. I made a trade with a team. Paul Holmgren and I actually did this. We traded a player. I can't tell you to which team, but it was for an autographed hockey stick. The guy ended up being in the Hockey Hall of Fame. The player that we traded never made it, but we had to move him because he was going to make our team. And we got a beautiful sign, and we sold it at an auction, and we put it into the team's foundation. We did.
Yep. All right. Well, I wonder what you would have got if you traded Nanu. You know, it's our Nanu Nanette, right? What's that baby? Talk about weird trade. That takes the crown there. But hey, listen, we want to thank Eric Lacroix for joining us. He was great. Great job being here. Yep, it was really nice. He just sent us a nice note too. It was our pleasure, our honor to have you on, Eric. We'd love to have you on again. So that was great. Good Colorado Avalanche stuff. Thanks to everyone for their questions and comments. And thanks to our production crew. He's Pierre McGuire. I'm Jimmy Murphy. We'll talk to you tomorrow on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind.